dear Uz Report world viewers, today we are again in our studio and we have a special guest today, an executive director of Korea Exchange and advisor to Capital Market Development Agency and Uzbek Republican Stock Exchange, Mr. Hyunsoo Choi. Mr. Hyunsoo Choi, welcome to our studio. Thanks for coming today, and I have several questions to you. If you don't mind, I will start. So my first question is, the Korean Stock Exchange has had an intention to send its specialists to Uzbekistan. Is that why you came here?
Assalamu alaikum. Tanis karamda horsamman. My name is Hyunsoo Choi from Korea. I've worked for Korea Stock Exchange for over 32 years now. I'm here in Uzbekistan to provide advisory services to the Uzbek Capital Market Authority and the Stock Exchange. I hope that my experience in Korean capital market will contribute to the development of the Uzbek capital market. I'm really look forward to the collaboration with my Uzbek partners.
Thank you so much for your answer. Mr. Choi, the term capital market broadly defines the place where various entities trade different financial instruments. These venues may include the stock market, the bond market, and the currency and foreign exchange markets. Most markets are concentrated in major financial centers including New York, London, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Capital markets are also used to sell financial products such as equities and debt securities. What categories do the capital markets have, and what is the main priority for the modern economy?
In modern capital markets, a variety of products are traded, from traditional financial instruments such as stocks and bonds to the commodities like gold and derivatives. I think a capital market is like heart, our human body. Just as hearts supply blood to all parts of our bodies, capital markets channel financial capital to every corner of national economy, allocating limited financial resources to the places where the capital is most needed. I understand that currently discussions are underway in Uzbekistan to establish a strategic roadmap for capital market reform. I hope that through this process, a well-designed blueprint will be prepared to pave the way for long-term development of the capital market as well as the national economy of Uzbekistan.
Thank you for the answer. The next question is, capital markets also reduce the cost of doing business by providing the global economy with a reliable source of cash and liquidity. Capital markets bring borrowers and lenders together in efficient ways and help channel resources to create a healthy national and global economy. They provide essential funding that affects people's lives in many ways, from starting a business to expanding a current one or providing investment opportunities for people planning for their future. Capital markets allow traders to buy and sell stocks and bonds and enable businesses to raise financial capital to grow. How do you assess these points in Central Asian countries related especially to Uzbekistan?
In general, a country's economy enters growth stage and the amount of necessary funds increases. The means of financing is shifted from indirect financing such as bank loans to the direct financing through capital markets. Therefore, the existence of well-functioning capital market is one of the prerequisites for financing economic policies as well as for the successful privatization of state-owned enterprises. Let's take the example of Korea's experience to see the importance of common policy initiative in this regard. To reconstruct the national economy from the ruins of the Korean War, which ended in 1953, the Korean government started to implement a series of economic development plans in 1962. Drastically increasing the amount of funds needed to finance the massive economic development projects. In this situation, the Korean government carried out a set of policies to develop its capital market, mainly by encouraging corporations to go public and list their stocks on the exchange market. In 1968, the government enacted a special law called Capital Market Promotion Act, which became a cornerstone in the history of capital market development in Korea. The act mainly aimed to induce going public of corporations by granting tax incentives. 4 years later, in 1972, Korean government came up with a more aggressive policy by enacting another law called Corporate Public Going Promotion Act to empower the government to select the corporations subject to going public and order them to go public. Thanks to these proactive government policies, the Korean capital market could enter the stage of full-scale quantitative growth. Here, I'm not saying that Korean development policy is the best solution, or that Uzbekistan needs to follow the Korean model. Instead, I just want to emphasize the importance of the role of government policy initiative in leading a country with small economy and scarce natural resources like Korea to achieve an intensive economic developments in a relatively short period of time.
Very good, very positive answer. Mr. Chair, I remember there was a conversation about the merger of existing exchanges into a single national exchange group. Is it possible in Uzbekistan?
When it comes to the capital market structure design, the key is how to create a market environment where investors can easily access the market and trade the investment products as efficiently as possible. Let me introduce the story of market consolidation in Korea.
Okay.
In Korea, since the Korea Stock Exchange was established in 1956, the government maintained the single market structure until the KOSDAQ, a market for tech companies in Korea, was established in 1996, followed by the Korea Futures Exchange in 1999. In a country like Korea with a relatively small market size, a fragmented market structure is likely to generate a lot of inefficiencies. An example of such inefficiency was the dispute between the Korea Stock Exchange and the Futures Exchange over the trading of KOSPI 200 futures and options. The KOSDAQ also competed with the Korea Stock Exchange in almost all aspects, including in attracting companies to their own market. When the market size is large enough, competitions between markets can bring benefits to all market participants. However, in Korea, the Korea Stock Exchange and the other two markets competed for a limited size of pie, causing enormous inefficiencies to the national economy as well as to the market participants. To address such a situation, these three markets were consolidated into Korea Exchange 2005. Given the current size and level of development of Uzbek capital market, I would like to suggest that the transactions of all types of securities, including stocks, corporate bonds, government bonds, commodities, derivatives, etc., be concentrated on the market of the Republican Stock Exchange. Then I believe you can create a market liquidity and respond to diversifying investors' needs by developing new products in a more efficient and timely manner.
One more question on government bonds. They are not quoted or sold on the capital market. We are interested in world practice. How does this work in South Korea and how Uzbekistan is able to implement it?
The government bond market in a country plays a vital role in leading the development of entire financial market by providing benchmark yields to the market. What is important for this is to secure sufficient liquidity in the market and create market environment where the government bonds can be traded as transparently as possible. In the wake of foreign currency crisis in 1997, the IMF recommended Korean government to develop a reliable benchmark yield by enhancing the transparency in the government bond transactions. In accordance with the recommendations, in 1999, the Korea Stock Exchange launched an electronic platform for government bond trading, and the government implemented a policy obligating the government bond dealers to participate in the exchange bond market. Until then, the majority of government bonds in Korea were traded in over-the-counter market. But the problem was the low transparency in the OTC transactions. In this situation, it was almost impossible to create a reliable benchmark yield. And therefore, the government decided to concentrate the liquidity of the government bond transactions on the electronic trading platform operated by the Korea Stock Exchange. Thanks to these proactive government's policies, around 80% of government bonds now traded in the Korea Stock Exchange, and the yields of the treasury bonds are well received as the benchmark yield in the financial market. In Uzbekistan, I believe that one of the best policy options is to concentrate the transactions of government bonds into the market of Republican Stock Exchange. And as a long-term project to let the stock exchange to develop an electronic trading platform to launch inter-dealer market for government bonds and introduce the primary dealership into the market based on the performance of the dealers in the market.
We carry out reforms in the financial market in a consolidated manner. Banks develop on their own and the capital market on its own. Do we need a single regulator, and what is your take on that?
Having an efficient regulatory system in place is another prerequisite for the long-term development of the capital market by building and maintaining the investors' confidence in the market. Therefore, it is a very important policy task to create market regulatory structure that can prevent unfair trading in advance and make timely detection of the irregularities in the market. In this respect, I think it is required to enhance the regulatory efficiency in the Uzbek capital market by consolidating divided supervisory functions into one regulatory body. That way, you can respond to the unfair trading practices in a more timely and efficient manner. And in Korea, the finance supervisory functions were initially divided into securities, banking, and insurance sectors. Under this decentralized regulatory scheme, the scope of supervision and responsibilities between authorities were not clear, and market-wide supervision couldn't work efficiently due to the lack of cooperation and information exchange among the authorities. To be worse, this incomplete regulatory system in Korea was blamed to be one of the causes of the foreign currency crisis. In 1998, after learning painful lessons, the Korean government consolidated 4 supervisory agencies into one, the Financial Services Commission. If you ask me what the most practical solution is for the future of Uzbek capital market, I would suggest to consolidate current regulatory functions into the CMDA, the Capital Market Development Agency. If necessary, expand the organization and reinforce the manpower of the CMDA and entrust them with reform of Uzbek capital market. You'll be able to put the capital market reform on the right track and pick up the pace of the reform.
Mr. Choi, today you have pointed out some important implications with regards to the development of capital market in Uzbekistan based on Korea's experience. Is there anything to add?
Any capital market is supposed to go through some trials and errors, big and small, throughout its development process. The thing is how to design and build a robust capital market structure that can effectively support the growth of national economy while minimizing such trials and errors. It is believed that Uzbekistan can take advantage of late starter. Don't think it's too late. It's always better late than never. I expect the Uzbek capital market authorities to get some implications from the experiences of other markets, including Korea, and make right policy choices. It is my sincere hope that Uzbek government will come up with a concentrated single market structure and a simple yet efficient regulatory system for the long-term development of the capital market. So in the near future, I hope to see the corporations and investors around the world, including Korea, rush to the Uzbek capital market, seeking opportunities to invest in Uzbekistan's bright future. In the meantime, it would be a great honor for me if Korea's experience could be of any help for the development of Uzbek capital market, and if I could play a small role in the process.
So Mr. Choi, thank you so much for coming to our studio. Thanks for your time. You gave us the most interesting and important information about the capital market, and thanks for your suggestions.
Katakon Rahmat.
Dear Uz Report world viewers, we had a special guest today in our studio, an executive director of Korea Exchange and advisor to Capital Market Development Agency and Uzbek Republican Stock Exchange, Mr. Hyunsoo Choi. Thank you so much and goodbye.